Captain Marcus Chin stood alone on the observation deck of the mining station Prometheus, watching the Valdris Imperial fleet emerge from hyperspace. 73 warships materialized in the void, their sleek hulls gleaming like predatory fish under the distant star's light. The sight should have terrified him. Instead, Marcus felt oddly calm. The mining station housed 3,000 workers from 12 different species. Humans made up less than 10% of the population. When the Valdris Empire had issued their ultimatum 3 days ago, demanding the station's surrender and all its inhabitants as slaves, every other species' representatives had voted to comply. Only Marcus had voted against surrender. Captain Chun to the bridge, came the announcement over the comm system. Marcus took one last look at the approaching fleet before making his way through the station's corridors. Workers from various alien species watched him pass. Some showed sympathy in their alien features. Others displayed what could only be described as pity. On the bridge, Station Commander Zephic, a tall reptilian saurian, waited with his senior staff. His scaled head turned toward Marcus as he entered. "Captain, the Valdris fleet is demanding immediate surrender. Admiral Vextar herself is commanding the flagship. This is not a force we can resist." Marcus studied the tactical display showing the enemy formation. Each ship outgunned their mining station by a significant margin. The station's defensive weapons were designed to handle pirates and raiders, not a full Imperial battle fleet. By any logical calculation, resistance was suicide. "Have they responded to our request for negotiations?" Marcus asked. Commander Zephic's throat sac inflated slightly, a sign of stress among his people. "Admiral Vextar has agreed to meet with our representative. She finds it amusing that anyone would request terms when facing such overwhelming force." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. Whoever went to negotiate would likely not return. The Valdris Empire was known for their cruelty, especially towards species they considered inferior. Humans, being relatively new to the galactic stage, ranked particularly low in their estimation. "I'll go," Marcus said simply. "Captain, that would be suicide," objected Dr. Yelani, the station's Altarian chief medical officer. Her blue-skinned face showed genuine concern. "The Valdris have never shown mercy to human negotiators." Marcus smiled grimly. "Then, I guess I'll have to be the first exception." 2 hours later, Marcus sat in a small shuttle approaching the Valdris flagship Dominator. The massive dreadnought stretched over 2 kilometers in length, bristling with weapons that could reduce planets to ash. Its dark hull was covered in intricate patterns that told the story of the Empire's conquests. Each line represented a world subjugated, a species enslaved. The shuttle bay engulfed his small craft like a predator swallowing prey. Valdris warriors in ceremonial armor escorted Marcus through corridors lined with trophies from conquered worlds. He recognized artifacts from dozens of species, each one representing the end of someone's freedom. Admiral Vextar waited in her throne room, a vast chamber designed to intimidate. She stood nearly 3 meters tall, her muscular frame covered in the biomechanical enhancements that marked Valdris nobility. Her 4 arms ended in clawed hands, and her elongated skull bore the ritual scars of a fleet commander. Behind her, holographic displays showed the positions of her ships surrounding the mining station. "So," her voice rumbled through the chamber's acoustics, "the humans send their representative. How refreshing to see such courage in the face of inevitable destruction." Marcus stepped forward, showing no fear despite being dwarfed by the alien admiral. "I'm here to discuss terms for the station's protection." Vextar's laugh was like grinding metal. "Protection? Little human, you misunderstand your position. Your species is barely past planetary spaceflight. You have no military to speak of, no empire to defend you. What could you possibly offer that would interest the Valdris Empire?" "A challenge," Marcus replied calmly. The throne room fell silent. Valdris officers exchanged glances, uncertain if they had heard correctly. Admiral Vextar leaned forward, her predatory eyes focusing on the small human before her. "Explain yourself." Marcus gestured toward the displays showing her fleet. "Your empire conquers through overwhelming force. You've never faced real resistance because you choose easy targets. But what happens when you meet someone who refuses to surrender despite impossible odds? What happens when your perfect record of conquest faces its first true test?" Vextar's upper arms crossed while her lower hands gripped the throne's armrests. You speak of resistance with 73 ships surrounding your pathetic station. What resistance could you possibly offer? The kind that makes you question whether conquest is always worth the cost, Marcus answered. I propose a duel. Single combat between representatives. If I win, you leave the station and everyone aboard it alone. If you win, we surrender without resistance. The alien admiral stood slowly, her full height casting a shadow over Marcus. And what makes you think I would agree to such terms? Marcus met her gaze without flinching. Because despite all your power, all your ships, all your conquered worlds, you've never truly tested yourself against someone with nothing left to lose. Every victory you've won has been guaranteed before the first shot was fired. When was the last time you faced uncertainty? Vextar circled him slowly, studying the human like a predator examining unusual prey. You would face me in personal combat? A human against a Valdris fleet commander? I would face whatever champion you choose to send, Marcus clarified. Or you yourself, if you're brave enough to risk your perfect record on a fair fight. The challenge hung in the air like a physical thing. Around the throne room, Valdris officers watched their admiral's reaction. Some showed amusement at the human's audacity. Others displayed the first hints of respect for his courage. Admiral Vextar returned to her throne, her four arms spread wide. Interesting. It has been decades since anyone dared challenge the Empire's might so directly. Very well, human. I accept your terms, with one modification. The combat will be tomorrow at dawn, station time. But, know this, when you die, and you will die, your station will surrender as agreed. Marcus nodded. And if I win? If you win, Vextar's expression suggested she found the possibility absurd. The Valdris Empire will withdraw and leave your station in peace. But victory for a human against Valdris might is impossible. As Marcus was escorted back to his shuttle, he felt the weight of 3,000 lives resting on his shoulders. The logical part of his mind told him he had just signed his own death warrant. But another part, the part that had driven humanity to reach for the stars despite every obstacle, whispered that sometimes impossible was just another word for untested. The news of Marcus's challenge spread through the mining station like wildfire. In the recreation areas, mess halls, and worker dormitories, beings from across the galaxy gathered to discuss what many considered an act of magnificent suicide. The human had bought them one night of freedom before the inevitable. Dr. Yolani found Marcus in the station's small gymnasium, running through combat routines with an intensity that surprised her. Sweat gleamed on his skin as he moved through a series of martial arts forms she didn't recognize. His movements were precise, economical, and carried the weight of years of training. Captain, I've brought medical supplies, she said, setting down a case of battlefield stimulants and healing compounds. Though I'm not sure they'll help against a Valdris warrior. Marcus paused his routine, breathing heavily. Tell me about Valdris physiology. What are their weaknesses? Dr. Yolani's blue skin darkened, a sign of distress among her people. Marcus, they have very few weaknesses. Their bone density is 3 times that of humans. Their muscle fibers are enhanced with biomechanical implants from birth. They're bred for warfare. A typical Valdris soldier can lift 2 tons and move faster than most species can track. But they do have weaknesses, Marcus insisted, toweling off. Every species does. What about their enhanced physiology? Are there downsides to all those improvements? The doctor considered this carefully. Well, their enhanced muscles require more oxygen than natural tissue. During prolonged combat, they can experience what we might call super fatigue. Their biomechanical implants also generate heat that their natural cooling systems struggle to manage under stress. Marcus nodded, filing this information away. What about their combat philosophy? How do they fight? Brutally and directly came a new voice. Commander Zephic entered the gymnasium, his scaled features grim. I've studied Valdris tactics for years. They rely on overwhelming physical superiority to crush opponents quickly. They're not accustomed to prolonged engagements. Show me their combat recordings, Marcus requested. For the next several hours, Marcus watched footage of Valdris warriors in action. They fought with devastating efficiency, using their superior strength and speed to end conflicts within minutes. Their movements were powerful, but followed predictable patterns. They had become so accustomed to easy victories that they rarely adapted their tactics mid-combat. As the station's artificial night cycle began, Marcus retreated to his quarters for meditation and final preparations. He had chosen his equipment carefully: lightweight armor that prioritized mobility over protection, and weapons designed for precision rather than raw power. Against a Valdris warrior, traditional human military doctrine of superior firepower would be useless. Meanwhile, aboard the Valdris flagship, Admiral Vextar held her own council of war. Her chosen champion, Commander Thorak, stood at attention in the center of the strategy room. At nearly 3.5 meters tall, he was massive even by Valdris standards. His biomechanical enhancements gleamed under the harsh lights, and ritual scars covered his arms like a living history of victories. "The human has accepted single combat," Vextar announced to her assembled officers. "Commander Thorak will represent our Empire's might." Sub-Admiral Krex, her second-in-command, raised a concern. "Admiral, is it wise to honor this challenge? We could simply destroy the station and take what we need." Vextar's forearms gestured dismissively. "Where is the glory in that? This human has shown courage worthy of respect. When Thorak defeats him, it will serve as an example to other species who might consider resistance. Let them see what happens when inferior beings challenge the Empire." Commander Thorak spoke for the first time, his voice a deep rumble. "Admiral, I have reviewed footage of human combat techniques. They are primitive and ineffective. This will not be a battle. It will be an execution." "Good," Vextar replied. "But execute him with honor. The human has earned that much." Dawn came to the mining station with artificial precision. The combat arena had been hastily constructed in the station's main cargo bay, with viewing platforms erected for witnesses from both sides. Representatives from every species aboard the station gathered to watch, their faces showing mixtures of hope, fear, and resignation. The Valdris delegation arrived with ceremonial pomp. Admiral Vextar herself attended, flanked by her senior officers. They took their positions on the raised platform overlooking the arena, their imposing presence casting shadows over the assembled crowd. Marcus entered from the opposite side, wearing light combat armor and carrying weapons that looked almost toy-like compared to what his opponent would bring. But those who knew him recognized the calm determination in his movements. He had spent the night in meditation and preparation, accepting what might come while preparing to give everything he had. Commander Thorak's entrance was designed to intimidate. The massive Valdris warrior strode into the arena carrying weapons that could slice through starship hull plating. His biomechanical enhancements hummed with barely contained power, and each step left small cracks in the reinforced floor plating. "Behold," Admiral Vextar announced, her voice carrying through the arena's audio systems. "The champion of the Valdris Empire faces the representative of humanity. Let this combat demonstrate the natural order of the galaxy. The strong rule, and the weak serve." Marcus and Thorak faced each other across the arena floor. The size difference was staggering. The human looked like a child facing a mechanical giant. But Marcus showed no sign of intimidation. Instead, he bowed slightly to his opponent, a gesture of respect that surprised many Valdris observers. Thorak responded with a warrior's salute, raising his massive blade. "Human, you have shown courage. I will grant you a quick death. And you've shown honor by accepting this challenge," Marcus replied. "May the best warrior win." The combat referee, a neutral Altarian official, raised his hand. "Combat will commence on my mark. Victory conditions are death or surrender of one participant. Combatants, take your positions." Marcus moved to a defensive stance, his lighter weapons ready. Every eye in the arena focused on the two fighters. Thousands of lives hung in the balance, and the course of future human-Valdris relations would be decided in the next few minutes. Thorak activated his weapon systems, energy coursing through his enhanced musculature. His confidence was absolute. No human had ever defeated a Valdris warrior in single combat. This would be another easy victory in a long career of conquest. But, as the referee's hand began to fall, Marcus felt something he hadn't expected. Not fear, but a strange sense of rightness. This was what humanity was, the species that stood up when others couldn't, that fought impossible odds because someone had to. Win or lose. He would show the galaxy what humans were truly capable of. The referee's hand dropped. Begin. Commander Thorak charged with devastating force, his massive frame covering the distance between them in seconds. His energy blade carved through the air where Marcus had been standing, leaving glowing traces in its wake. But the human was no longer there. Marcus had moved at the last possible moment, rolling aside and coming up behind the Valdris warrior. His plasma rifle fired 3 rapid shots at the joints of Thorak's armor, areas where the biomechanical enhancements were most vulnerable. The shots scored hits, but barely scratched the reinforced plating. Thorak spun with surprising speed for his size, backhanding at the human. Marcus ducked under the massive arm and fired again, this time targeting the heat dissipation vents on the warrior's back. One shot found its mark, causing warning lights to flicker across Thorak's armor display. The arena erupted in surprised murmurs. No one had expected the human to last more than a few seconds, let alone score hits on the Valdris champion. Admiral Vextar leaned forward in her observation platform, her predatory eyes tracking the combat with new interest. Thorak pressed his attack, using his reach advantage to keep Marcus at a distance. The energy blade whistled through the air in devastating arcs, each swing capable of cutting the human in half. But Marcus moved like water, flowing around each attack and responding with precise counterstrikes. Impossible, Sub-Admiral Krex muttered from the Valdris observation platform. How is the human avoiding Thorak's attacks? Admiral Vextar didn't answer, but her 4 arms gripped the platform railing as she watched the human's movements. There was something unnatural about his speed and timing. No being should be able to predict Thorak's attacks so accurately. Marcus wasn't faster than his opponent, he was smarter. Years of studying alien combat footage had taught him to read the subtle tells that preceded each attack. The slight shift in Thorak's weight before an overhead strike, the micropause before a horizontal sweep. The Valdris warrior's enhanced physiology actually worked against him here, making his movements more predictable. But reading attacks and surviving them were different things. Marcus's armor was already showing damage from near misses, and his breathing was becoming labored. He couldn't maintain this defensive pattern indefinitely. Thorak seemed to realize this as well. He began varying his attack patterns, mixing feints with real strikes to force mistakes. One miscalculation, and the human would be dead. The massive warrior's confidence remained unshaken. This was just taking longer than expected. You fight well for prey, Thorak growled between attacks. But your endurance is limited. Soon you will slow, and then you will die. Marcus didn't waste breath on replies. He was conserving every bit of energy for the fight. But Thorak was right. The human was beginning to slow. The larger warrior's reach advantage meant Marcus had to cover twice the distance to avoid each attack, and that was taking its toll. Then, Marcus noticed something crucial. Thorak's heat dissipation systems were glowing brighter than before. The damaged vent was causing his entire cooling system to work overtime. Dr. Yelani's briefing had been correct. The biomechanical enhancements were generating more heat than the warrior's natural systems could handle. Marcus changed tactics. Instead of purely defensive movements, he began leading Thorak in a dance around the arena. He forced the larger warrior to make rapid direction changes, to accelerate and decelerate repeatedly. Each movement generated more heat in the enhanced muscle fibers. The strategy was dangerous. It required Marcus to take greater risks, to come closer to those devastating weapon strikes. His armor took several glancing blows that sent him rolling across the arena floor. But each exchange left Thorak slightly more overheated. Admiral Vextar realized what the human was doing before her champion did. "Thorak," she called out. "End this quickly. Don't let him extend the combat." But Thorak's warrior pride had been stung by the human's resistance. Instead of following his admiral's advice, he increased the intensity of his attacks. The energy blade carved deeper gouges in the arena floor, and his movements became more aggressive. Marcus counted on this reaction. Valdris warriors were bred for conquest, not patience. Their entire culture was built on swift, overwhelming victory. A prolonged fight went against every instinct Thorak possessed. The turning point came when Thorak attempted a massive overhead strike meant to end the fight. Marcus waited until the last possible second before diving aside, and The energy blade buried itself in the reinforced arena floor. For just a moment, the weapon was trapped. Marcus struck with everything he had. His rifle fired its remaining charge directly into the damaged heat vent. Then, he activated his backup weapon, a simple monomolecular blade that would have been useless against thorax armor under normal circumstances. But these weren't normal circumstances. The damaged cooling system had created a cascade failure in thorax biomechanical enhancements. The superheated muscle fibers were seizing up, and his armor's power distribution was fluctuating wildly. The monomolecular blade found the gap Marcus had been targeting throughout the fight, a weak point where thorax neck armor connected to his helmet. It was a tiny opening, but Marcus's strike was precise beyond anything the Valdris had expected from a human. Thorax stumbled backward, dropping his energy blade. Warning alarms screamed from his armor as critical systems failed. The massive warrior looked down at the small human with something approaching disbelief. How? He gasped, his enhanced physiology finally betraying him. Marcus stood breathing heavily, his own armor cracked and smoking. Because humans don't fight fair when our survival is at stake. We fight smart. Thorax tried to reach for a backup weapon, but his overheated enhancement systems couldn't respond. The biomechanical implants that had made him superhuman were now paralyzing him. He toppled forward like a falling tree, unconscious but alive. Silence filled the arena. No one moved. No one spoke. The impossible had just happened. A human had defeated a Valdris champion in single combat. Admiral Vextar slowly descended from her observation platform, her 4 arms hanging at her sides. She walked across the arena floor to where Marcus stood over her fallen champion. When she spoke, her voice carried across the suddenly quiet space. "I have witnessed something today that I believed impossible," she said, studying the human with new eyes. "You have defeated our greatest warrior through tactics we never considered. How do you call this victory?" Marcus wiped blood from a cut on his forehead, meeting the Admiral's gaze without fear. "I call it adaptation. Humans survive by learning, by changing our approach when the situation requires it. Your warrior was stronger, faster, and better armed. So I had to be smarter." Vextar nodded slowly. "And now you expect me to honor our agreement." "I expect you to decide whether your word has meaning," Marcus replied. The terms were clear. The alien admiral looked around the arena, at her unconscious champion, at the assembled crowd of alien species who had witnessed human courage, at her own officers who were still processing what they had seen. "Indeed they were," she said finally. Admiral Vextar stood in the center of the arena, her massive frame casting shadows over Marcus and the fallen thorax. The silence stretched like a taut wire, ready to snap. Every being in the arena held their breath, waiting for the decision that would determine the fate of 3,000 souls. "Sub-Admiral Krex," she called without turning around. "What are the standing orders regarding defeated champions?" Her second-in-command stepped forward reluctantly. "Admiral, there are no standing orders for this situation. No Valdris champion has ever been defeated in single combat." A murmur rippled through the crowd. The admission that this was unprecedented territory seemed to hang in the air like smoke. Admiral Vextar walked slowly around Marcus, studying him as if seeing a human for the first time. "Captain Chun," she said finally, "do you understand the magnitude of what has just occurred?" Marcus remained standing despite his exhaustion. "I understand that I kept my word. I fought your champion and won. Now I'm asking you to keep yours." "Keep my word," Vextar repeated, tasting the words. "Do you know how long it has been since anyone questioned whether the Valdris Empire would honor an agreement?" "I'm not questioning it," Marcus replied. "I'm trusting it." The distinction was subtle but important. Instead of challenging the Admiral's integrity, Marcus was appealing to it. Admiral Vextar's predatory features shifted into what might have been the beginning of a smile. "Cunning even in victory," she observed. "Tell me, human, what did you see in Commander Thorak that we missed?" Marcus glanced down at the unconscious warrior. "I saw someone who had never lost. That was his greatest weakness. He had no experience with failure, no ability to adapt when his first approach didn't work." "And humans do?" "Humans fail constantly," Marcus said with a tired smile. "It's what we're best at. We fail, learn, adapt, and try again. We've been doing it since we climbed down from trees and decided to walk upright." Dr. Yelani had reached the arena floor and was attending to both fighters. She worked on Thorak first, stabilizing his overheated enhancement systems, then moved to Marcus. Her scanner showed dozens of minor injuries and one concerning head trauma. "Captain, you need immediate medical attention," she murmured while working. After the Admiral gives her decision, Marcus replied, never taking his eyes off Vextar. The alien commander seemed to appreciate his priorities. She gestured to her medical team to assist Dr. Yelani, then addressed the arena at large. "Let it be recorded that Captain Marcus Chun of Earth has defeated Commander Thorak in single combat according to agreed terms." The words carried the weight of official proclamation. Several Valdris officers activated recording devices while others began updating their tactical databases. This moment would be studied for generations. Furthermore, Vextar continued, "The Valdris Empire hereby withdraws from this system and grants safe passage to all inhabitants of Mining Station Prometheus. The terms of our agreement are fulfilled." Cheers erupted from the station's crew quarters, visible through the arena's transparent aluminum walls. Beings from a dozen species embraced and celebrated. Some wept with relief. Others simply stood in stunned disbelief that they were still free. But Admiral Vextar wasn't finished. "However, Captain Chun, I must ask you something important. What are your intentions now?" Marcus frowned, confused by the question. "My intentions? You have just accomplished something unprecedented in galactic history. You, a single human, have forced the Valdris Empire to withdraw through force of arms. Word of this will spread throughout known space within days. How do you intend to handle the consequences?" The implications began to dawn on Marcus. His victory hadn't just saved the mining station. It had announced humanity's presence on the galactic stage in the most dramatic way possible. Every species would want to know more about the humans who could defeat Valdris champions. Commander Zephic joined them on the arena floor, his scaled features showing a mixture of gratitude and concern. "The captain is right to be worried," he said. "This victory will be seen as either an inspiration or a threat, depending on who's viewing it. Some species will see humans as potential allies," Dr. Yelani added while continuing her medical scans. "Others will see you as a danger to be eliminated before you become stronger." Admiral Vextar nodded approvingly. "Finally, beings who understand galactic politics. Captain Chun, your species is about to face a test far greater than single combat. Are humans prepared for the attention this victory will bring?" Marcus considered the question carefully. Earth's population barely exceeded 8 billion. Humanity had only achieved faster-than-light travel within the past 50 years. They had no military alliances, no established trade networks, no experience with interspecies diplomacy on a galactic scale. "We'll adapt," he said finally. "It's what we do." "That may not be enough," Vextar warned. "The Corvin hegemony will see your victory as a challenge to their naval supremacy. The Altarian Federation will want to study your tactics. The Hive worlds will view humans as either tools or threats. Your planet may face first-contact scenarios with dozens of species simultaneously." The weight of unintended consequences settled on Marcus's shoulders. He had fought to save 3,000 lives, but his victory might have endangered 8 billion more. The irony wasn't lost on him. "Admiral," he said slowly, "may I ask you a hypothetical question?" "Proceed." "If a species demonstrated the ability to defeat your champions, but showed no interest in conquest or expansion, how would the Valdris Empire view them?" Vextar's eyes narrowed as she understood the direction of his thoughts. "You're asking whether we would consider humans as potential allies rather than threats. I'm asking whether there's a way forward that doesn't involve my species becoming a target for every aggressive empire in the galaxy." The alien admiral was quiet for a long moment, her forearms folding in a gesture Marcus was beginning to recognize as deep consideration. Around them, the celebration continued, but the conversation had taken on the weight of interstellar diplomacy. "There is precedent," Vextar said finally. "The Valdris Empire has occasionally formed partnerships with species who demonstrate exceptional capabilities. These are not alliances of conquest, but agreements of mutual respect. What would such an arrangement require? Proof that humans can offer something the Empire values beyond simple military prowess. Your victory today demonstrated tactical innovation. But innovation alone is not enough to ensure your species' survival in the larger galaxy. Marcus felt the puzzle pieces beginning to align in his mind. The Admiral wasn't just warning him about future threats, she was offering a potential solution. But, like everything involving the Valdris Empire, it would come with a price. What kind of proof would you need, he asked. Admiral Vextar smiled, and this time it was unmistakably predatory. That, Captain Chun, depends on how much your species is willing to risk to secure their future. 3 weeks later, Marcus stood on the bridge of the Valdris flagship Dominator, no longer as a prisoner, but as an unexpected guest. The arrangement Admiral Vextar had proposed was as audacious as it was dangerous, but it offered humanity something they desperately needed: time to prepare for galactic contact. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of returning directly to Earth with news that would spark panic and potentially draw unwanted attention, Marcus would accompany the Valdris fleet as an observer and tactical consultant. In exchange for human insights into adaptive combat doctrine, the Valdris would provide intelligence about galactic politics and potential threats to Earth. Your species' homeworld is receiving its first official diplomatic visitors, Admiral Vextar informed him as they watched the tactical display. A small Altarian delegation had arrived at Earth 3 days earlier, followed by trade representatives from the Centauri Commercial Collective. How are your leaders responding? Marcus studied the reports with growing concern. Earth's unified government had been caught completely unprepared for first contact with multiple species simultaneously. The diplomatic protocols they had developed assumed gradual, controlled contact with one species at a time. About as well as can be expected, he replied diplomatically. Though I suspect they're wondering why suddenly everyone wants to talk to humanity. Word of your victory has spread faster than anticipated, Sub-Admiral Krex observed from his position at the tactical station. Several species are reassessing their estimates of human capabilities. The bridge's main display showed a galactic map with dozens of colored indicators representing various stellar nations. Marcus was beginning to understand the complex web of alliances, trade agreements, and territorial disputes that governed interstellar politics. It made Earth's national politics look simple by comparison. Admiral, he said, I've been thinking about your offer of partnership. What exactly would the Valdris Empire gain from an alliance with humanity? Vextar gestured to a holographic projection showing recent combat analysis. Your tactics against Commander Thorak have been studied by our War College. The principles you employed, exploiting opponent overconfidence, using superior knowledge to overcome physical disadvantages, adapting strategy in real time. These represent a combat philosophy foreign to our experience. Most species we encounter fight according to predictable patterns, Krex added. They rely on superior numbers, advanced weapons, or natural physical advantages. When those fail, they have no alternatives. But humans seem to specialize in making alternatives, Vextar continued. This interests us greatly. An ally who can provide new perspectives on ancient problems could be extremely valuable. Marcus nodded, but he could see the larger picture forming. The Valdris weren't just interested in human tactical innovation. They were facing their own challenges. An empire built on conquest eventually ran out of easy targets. You're looking for new approaches because the old ones aren't working anymore, he realized. The galaxy is getting more complex, and pure military force isn't always the answer. Admiral Vextar's expression showed approval. Perceptive. Yes, the Empire faces evolving challenges. Species that cannot be conquered through traditional means. Problems that require solutions we have not previously considered. Before Marcus could ask for details, the bridge's communication system activated. A priority message was incoming from Earth, marked with diplomatic encryption codes. Marcus accepted the transmission, and President Martinez's image appeared on the display. Captain Chun, the president began without preamble. We need you back on Earth immediately. The situation here is becoming complicated. Marcus could see the strain on the man's face. President Martinez had been dealing with first contact scenarios while Marcus had been learning galactic politics firsthand. What's the situation, sir? We've received 3 separate offers of alliance in the past week. The Altarians want to establish a research partnership. The Centauri Collective is offering trade agreements that could revolutionize our economy. And he paused, glancing at something off-screen. The Corvin hegemony has demanded we choose sides in some sort of territorial dispute. Admiral Vextar leaned into the transmission pickup. President Martinez, I am Admiral Vextar of the Valdris Empire. Captain Chun has been serving as a liaison between our species. The president's eyes widened as he recognized the alien speaking to him. Reports of the Valdris Empire's reputation had clearly reached Earth's leadership. Admiral, we weren't aware that humanity had any relationship with your empire. Until recently, you did not, Vextar replied smoothly. Captain Chin's actions have created new possibilities for cooperation between our species. However, the choices your world makes in the next few days will determine whether those possibilities become reality. Marcus stepped forward. Mr. President, I recommend extreme caution with any commitments until we can analyze the broader implications. Galactic politics are far more complex than we anticipated. That's exactly why we need you here, Martinez replied. Every species that contacts us mentions your victory against this Valdris champion. They're treating humanity as a significant power based on the actions of one person. Because those actions revealed something important, Admiral Vextar interjected. Your species possesses capabilities that others lack. This makes you valuable as allies and dangerous as enemies. Choose your first alliances carefully. They will determine your species' trajectory for generations. The weight of that statement settled over the conversation like a heavy blanket. Marcus realized that his split-second decision to challenge the Valdris Empire had set in motion events that would reshape humanity's future. The mining station crisis had been resolved, but it had created much larger problems. Admiral, he said, would it be possible for a Valdris delegation to visit Earth? Our leaders need to understand their options before making decisions. Vextar considered this. Such a visit would send a clear message to other species about humanity's potential alignments. Are your leaders prepared for that level of commitment? President Martinez's image flickered as he consulted with advisors off-screen. When he returned his attention to the transmission, his expression was grim but determined. Captain Chun, bring them home. If we're going to navigate this new reality, we need all the information we can get. The transmission ended, leaving Marcus alone with the Valdris command crew. Admiral Vextar studied him with her predatory gaze, clearly evaluating something. Captain, she said finally, you realize that escorting Valdris ships to Earth will be seen as humanity choosing a side in galactic politics. Other species will interpret this as an alliance, whether formal agreements exist or not. Marcus understood the implications. Once Valdris ships appeared in Earth's solar system, neutrality would no longer be an option for humanity. They would be perceived as part of the Empire's sphere of influence, with all the benefits and dangers that implied. Then, we'd better make sure it's the right side, he said. Admiral Vextar's smile was sharp as a blade. Indeed. Sub-Admiral Krex, set course for the Sol system. It appears humanity is ready to take its first real steps onto the galactic stage. As the massive fleet began to turn toward Earth, Marcus wondered if he had just saved his species or doomed them. Time would tell, but, for better or worse, humanity's age of isolation was coming to an end. The Valdris fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system like a collection of metallic predators entering unfamiliar territory. Admiral Vextar had deliberately chosen a smaller escort force, only 12 ships instead of her full battle group. But even this reduced presence dwarfed anything in humanity's defensive arsenal. Marcus stood beside the Admiral on the Dominator's observation deck, watching his homeworld grow larger on the main display. Earth looked so small and vulnerable compared to the vast networks of inhabited systems he'd learned about during his time with the Valdris fleet. Your planet is beautiful, Admiral Vextar observed, her forearms clasped behind her back. Most inhabited worlds show extensive industrial scarring from orbit. Earth appears to have maintained its natural character. We learned from the mistakes of previous centuries, Marcus replied. Though maintaining that balance became much more complicated when we started reaching for the stars. The communication board lit up with incoming transmissions. Earth's defense satellites had detected the fleet and were broadcasting standard first contact protocols. But Marcus could hear the underlying tension in the transmission officer's voice. 12 Valdris warships represented more firepower than Earth's entire military could muster. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from Earth Defense Command," reported the communications officer. "Put it through," Vextar commanded. General Harrison's weathered face appeared on the main screen. Marcus had served under Harrison early in his career and knew the man's reputation for keeping calm under pressure. That calm was being severely tested now. "Unknown vessels, this is Earth Defense Command. Please state your intentions and identify your commanding officer." Admiral Vextar stepped forward, her imposing presence filling the transmission pickup. "General Harrison, I am Admiral Vextar of the Valdris Imperial Fleet. We come at the invitation of your government to discuss matters of mutual interest." The general's expression didn't change, but Marcus could see the calculations running behind his eyes. Harrison was mentally comparing the force disposition, analyzing potential responses, and probably wondering how humanity had attracted the attention of one of the galaxy's most feared military powers. "Admiral Vextar, you and a small diplomatic party are cleared to land at Andrews Spaceport. Please note that your escort vessels will need to maintain position beyond our orbital defense perimeter." "Understood and agreed," Vextar replied diplomatically. "We appreciate Earth's hospitality." 2 hours later, Marcus found himself back on his homeworld surface for the first time in months. Andrews Spaceport had been hastily prepared for alien visitors, with diplomatic protocols borrowed from Earth's various international organizations. The human delegation waiting for them represented every major nation and the unified Earth government. President Martinez stepped forward as Admiral Vextar descended from the Valdris shuttle. The size difference between the human leader and the alien admiral was striking, but Martinez held his ground with dignity. "Admiral Vextar, welcome to Earth. I'm President Martinez, current chair of the United Earth Council." "President Martinez," Vextar replied with a formal bow that acknowledged his position while asserting her own authority. "Your world honors us with this welcome. I bring greetings from the Valdris Empire and proposals that may benefit both our species." The initial ceremonies were carefully choreographed to avoid any cultural misunderstandings. Marcus served as translator not just of languages, but of intentions and implications. His weeks with the Valdris fleet had taught him to read the subtle signals that governed their diplomatic interactions. The real discussions began in the secure conference rooms beneath the spaceport. Representatives from Earth's major governments sat across from Admiral Vextar and her diplomatic staff, with Marcus positioned as an intermediary who understood both perspectives. "Let me be direct," President Martinez began once the formal introductions were complete. "Captain Chen's actions have thrust humanity into galactic politics before we were prepared. We need to understand our position and our options." Admiral Vextar appreciated the straightforward approach. "Your species faces a choice that will determine your future trajectory. You can attempt to maintain neutrality and independence, which will leave you vulnerable to aggressive expansion by other powers. Or you can align with established galactic factions and benefit from their protection and resources." "And the Valdris Empire offers such an alignment?" asked Dr. Sarah Chun, Earth's chief xenobiologist and Marcus's sister. "We offer something rarer, a partnership based on mutual benefit rather than subjugation," Vextar replied. "Your species has demonstrated capabilities we value. In return, we can provide protection from threats you cannot yet comprehend." General Harrison leaned forward. "What kind of threats?" Admiral Vextar gestured, and a holographic display filled the center of the conference table. It showed a three-dimensional map of local galactic space, with various colored zones representing different stellar nations and their territories. "The Corvin hegemony has been expanding aggressively for the past century," she explained, highlighting a section of space uncomfortably close to Earth. "They view emerging species as resources to be exploited. The hive worlds consider individual consciousness to be an aberration to be corrected. The void cult believes biological life itself is a mistake that must be purged." The human representatives exchanged concerned glances as the scope of potential threats became clear. Earth's isolation had protected them from these dangers, but that isolation was ending whether they wanted it or not. However, Vextar continued, "Species under Valdris protection are generally left alone by these aggressive powers. Our military reputation serves as an effective deterrent. Secretary of State Williams raised a crucial question. What would this protection cost us? Far less than you might expect, Admiral Vextar replied. We are not interested in governing your species or exploiting your resources. What we seek is access to your unique problem-solving capabilities and tactical innovations. Marcus stepped forward to elaborate. During my time with the Admiral's fleet, I learned that the Valdris Empire faces challenges that conventional military force cannot solve. They need allies who think differently, who can provide alternative approaches to complex problems. Specifically, Vextar added, we would like to establish joint research initiatives focused on adaptive strategy development. Human tactical thinking could revolutionize how we approach conflicts throughout the galaxy. The discussion continued for hours, with human representatives asking detailed questions about the proposed partnership. Gradually, a framework began to emerge that would benefit both species without compromising human autonomy. The Valdris would establish a small diplomatic mission on Earth and provide access to galactic communication networks. In return, humans would share their insights into adaptive problem-solving and participate in joint training exercises with Valdris forces. As the formal negotiations concluded, Admiral Vextar requested a private conversation with Marcus. They walked out onto the spaceport's observation deck, where Earth's sun was setting behind the alien shuttle. Captain Chun, she said, you realize that everything that has happened stems from your decision to fight rather than surrender at that mining station. Marcus nodded. I've thought about that a lot. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice. You made the only choice that could have led to this outcome, Vextar replied. Lesser beings would have accepted defeat and condemned their species to eventual subjugation. Your refusal to surrender revealed something important about humanity. What's that? Admiral Vextar's predatory smile was almost gentle. That humans are the rare species capable of changing the rules of the game when the existing rules are unacceptable. That ability will serve you well in the challenges ahead. As if summoned by her words, the communication system activated with an urgent message. A Corvin hegemony fleet had been detected entering human space, apparently intent on establishing a protective presence around Earth. Admiral Vextar read the tactical report with growing amusement. It appears the Corvin have decided to test human resolve. How quickly can your leaders mobilize a response? Marcus looked back toward the conference center where Earth's leaders were still debating the finer points of galactic diplomacy. In a few hours, they might face their first real test as members of the galactic community. Admiral, he said with a confidence that surprised him, I think you're about to see exactly why humans specialize in the impossible. As night fell over Earth, Marcus realized that his solitary stand against the Valdris Empire had been just the beginning. Humanity's real test was just starting, but for the first time since leaving the mining station, he felt confident they would meet it successfully. After all, humans had spent their entire existence proving that being outnumbered was just another obstacle to overcome. The age of human isolation was over. The age of human adaptation had begun.